the hidden treasure in will, the hidden treasure of will. The will is undoubtedly the main faculty that guides human destiny. It is essential in your psychological, moral and even physical edification, and it is the key to your success. In this respect, the pages of history are filled with examples of the domineering influence of certain men, be it Alexander, who, starting from an inferior position, rose to the top of the power, Louis XI, Sully, Richelieu, Oliver Cromwell, Colbert, Washington, Napoleon I, Bismarck, Churchill, Adenauer, General de Gaulle, and how many others. All these great men were provided with a strong will, innate or acquired, which enabled them to direct the other men, and, consequently, to direct the events to a certain extent. Likewise, but in another mode of human activity, the Newton, the Laplace, the Boucher de Perthes, the Pasteur, the Charles Richet, the Einstein, who, through their obstinate work, have uncovered certain secrets of nature, and who, in order to impose their conceptions, generally had to combat the prevailing and opposing opinions of the moment, were voluntary and often courageous men. Finally, it is not even to philosophical thought which does not turn towards creative action. The younger generations especially, drawing from Bergsonian's intuitionism and American's pragmatism of William James, clearly prefer, over the data of pure reason, those of practical reason. Indeed, organisms are made to act, that is to say, to deploy and manifest the forces that they contain, and we can admit that our perceptions and our thoughts exist only for action. William James also points out in Will to Believe, that intelligence is entirely built on practical interests. Knowledge, he says, is incomplete until it has resulted in an act. The sole purpose of the activity is to illuminate cognitive awareness through its results. Sensations and emotions are troubled and confused modes of what, when clarified, is called intelligent consciousness. Of course, when we say that the will is the enchanted key that opens your way to success as well as that of wisdom and happiness and that contributes to your health, we do not pretend that it is the only one qualification that you need to obtain these precious goods, but we mean that without the will, your intelligence, your know-how, the knowledge that you have acquired, the opportunities which are offered to you, your natural physical resistance, are many less effective. So you have to cultivate your will. The opportunity to develop it will present itself at all times by performing every day, punctually and properly, what you have to do, trying to fight against your bad inclinations, your bad habits, against your laziness, and, in general, against your faults. And thus you will create in you good and healthy habits which, in the conduct of life, are much more precious than maxims. They are, in fact, living maxims that have become flesh and instinct. Changing and reforming the principles that govern your behavior is certainly useful and even essential, but it's simply changing their title. On the other hand, to take on new habits is to achieve life in substance. You will also cultivate your will by willingly undergoing the inevitable sufferings such as certain physical pains, against which science is powerless, and the moral punishments brought about, in particular, by the loss of loved ones. With regard to these latter trials, do not revolt against destiny, for complaints and groans, do not avoid the inevitable, and do not repair the irreparable. No doubt you must mourn your parents and your lost friends, because you love them, and because you regret them, but it is futile, and it would be unreasonable to rebel against the inevitable laws of life, and of nature. Your sorrows, your afflictions are not always, of course, the work of life, or of nature, they are often also those of men. It is the fact, for example, of the industrialist ruined by the competition and the pupil punished by his master. Here, the ruling man will not be unnecessarily irritated against his competitors, but, if he has enough will, he will prepare for new struggles after having coldly analyzed the causes of his failures or his bankruptcy, and, for his part, the punished pupil will find out, if he should not especially complain about himself. But, to obtain this voluntary superiority and this serenity, prior training is essential. It consists essentially, and mainly of making yourself master of your muscles, your gestures and your thoughts. And also to cultivating and developing your bodily strength through proper nutrition, well-directed physical education, proper breathing exercises, the action of air, water, and sun. It is necessary, indeed, that your physique evolves at the same time as your psyche, if you want to obtain solid and definitive results in the domain of thought, will and action. It must be stressed, however, that the education of the will does not consist in making men capable of putting calculation everywhere and always in place of the impulse. Although oriented in this direction, it should not stifle the ability of the imagination to create ideal ends of action. The voluntary man must have an ideal which enables him to discipline and to prioritize his tendencies, and, thereby, to acquire what Goethe magnificently called the lordship of oneself.